Man, dude, I need a haircut. So, guys, I figured we'd do kind of an unscripted video today, just showing off the microphones in my collection. Just because I've reviewed a microphone on the channel does not actually mean that I own that microphone. Oftentimes, these microphones are borrowed. And now we're going to go to Bcam in order to reveal the microphones that I actually own. Are we ready? Drum roll, please. Here they are. I own 12 microphones. Well, I own 13 microphones. I forgot about the one I'm speaking into right now. So take a look. You can tell me which ones you thought were a surprise, the ones that I own and the ones that have just shown up on a review. Some of these are purely here just because I needed to review them. So I figured what we would do today is go through these microphones, talk about what I like about them, what I don't like about them, and then stick around for the end of the video because I'm going to reveal the ones that get all the use, the ones that are really the workhorses here. And I figured we'd make a little jam with them. Make a microphone-only jam. Well, there'll be instruments too. So let's start off with dynamic microphones. Obviously, we should start off with the microphone that I am currently speaking into, the main microphone of the channel that does all the voiceover work, the RE20. Oftentimes, the RE20 is obviously compared against the SM7B, right? And it's oftentimes considered the brighter alternative, right? It has more high end, and the SM7B is a little darker, a little bit more mid-forward. And in my opinion, though, the RE20 also has more extension into the low end. It's just not quite as pronounced. It's more flat. The RE20 is amazing because you can use it on basically anything. It's going to sound great. I personally use it for voiceover, sometimes on acoustic guitar, and for drums. I actually think it makes a great kick mic, especially if you're using two microphones on the kick. This is a supporting role. I also really like it to get like a little bit of a brighter tone out of a contrabass. All right, where should we go from here? Let's go to a microphone you have not seen before, actually. This is one of the first microphones that I have ever got. This is an SM58, and this came to me in horrible, horrible condition. This microphone actually, the grill is new, and there's a reason it's covered in duct tape, because under this duct tape, it's so much worse. Somebody tried to sell this to a certain store that I worked at, a certain center for guitars, and Guitar Center, all right, well, I gave it away. Yeah, Guitar Center didn't want it, so I bought it off the guy for 10 bucks. I've been using it for vocals for a long time now. So this dynamic microphone, I particularly only use it on guitar cabs, and honestly only some of the time. And that would be the E609. The E609 is great for guitar recording, especially in its form factor, because you can just kind of suspend it over the top of the cabinet rather than actually having to put it on a mic stand. You can just hang it by the cable. And I find it's really great for clean tones on guitar. The higher up the volume, this microphone really prefers louder volumes. But actually, when it comes to distortion, I really prefer the old tried and true, very famous on this channel specifically, SM57. The SM57 needs no introduction. We all know you can use it for basically anything. But when it comes to my particular use, I use it for voiceover, and I use it for guitar cab recording. I love this thing on distorted guitars. I usually pair it with a specific condenser microphone that I have at a further distance from the cab, and we will get to that condenser microphone here in a little bit. So the SEV7X, this is the most recent microphone review. It's a good mic. I like it a lot. A lot of people seem to think that this particular one that I got might have some grounding issues. We had some commenters in the last video say that this is not how their SE7X sounds, and I can believe it. It was kind of hard to deal with whenever I was doing the review. One person particularly said it sounded like an ungrounded humbucker, and that comment stuck with me. It might have some grounding issues, but it still has a really nice tone to it. I just think it's a little bit overly rich and overly saturated, and a lot of the commenters said it should sound flat, so don't know what's up there. Still a good mic. And last but not least, of course, we have the famous or infamous SM7B. I like this mic. I think the stereotype is that I don't like this mic, but I do. I think it's a great sounding mic, but I just prefer the brightness in my vocals that I get from the RE20 rather than the darkness that I get from the SM7B. But one thing that I actually really use the SM7B for a lot now, and it's actually starting to overtake the SM57 in this regard, is for guitar cabs. I really like the way this sounds close mic'd to a speaker, even just right on top of the tweeter. It's got a kind of dark mid-forward tone, and that's the kind of tone I like in my guitars. So sometimes the SM57 can get a little bit bright. I actually don't like the RE20 on guitar cabs either. So the SM7 is starting to become my go-to choice for recording guitar. All right, that is all the dynamic microphones. So let's start going through the condensers, shall we? Starting with the tried and true, very battle-worn microphone hero of the channel, the Rode NT1. This is everyone's hero, right? Focus. It's too dark to focus. Whatever. This is YouTube's like baby child of a microphone, right? A lot of people think of this whenever they get their first microphone for content creation, and for good reason. It's a great microphone. Mine has been through hell and back. I think I talked about how I used to use these live in concerts for drum overheads. That was a mistake. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I did. So at one point it ended up in a mosh pit. It's been around the world with me. I took it to Spain. I used it in my old band's EP whenever we recorded in the basement for basically everything. So it's been used for hi-hats, it's been used for acoustic guitar, it's been used for vocals, it's been used for trombones, it's been used for basically anything. Especially whenever I went to vocal school, we couldn't use vocal mics because of COVID, so we had to bring our own mics. So that's also for horns, that's for vocals, anything that has something to do with the mouth producing the sound. We used my NT1 to record all of it in a professional studio because we couldn't use those mics. Did great. Next one is the Samson C01. Now, I did not purchase this mic. Focus. Whatever, you know what it looks like. The Samson C01, I did not purchase. This was given to me by a friend, and way back in the day, I actually recommended this mic to that friend. And I think it did well for him. But in terms of studio recordings, I actually really like the tone of it, and I think it's pretty great at rejecting the noise around it. It's not bad at all. It just has one big problem, which I said in my review, and it's that self-noise is super audible. You know, whenever we talk about self-noise on most microphones, self-noise starts to show up as more of a problem whenever we do processing, maybe whenever we add the high shelf, add compression, bring up the volume until it's at a audible level. But just straight up plugging it in and turning the preamp up a little bit, I heard the self noise very evidently, and that makes it hard to recommend for a lot of work, especially voiceover work. Next, this is a fun one. This is the Presonus. Man, black microphones are not focusing. This is the Presonus M7, and I don't know how many of you guys had that Presonus starter pack from back in the day. You got these in the starter pack, the My First Studio starter packs. So I had an audio box USB, and I had the M7, and that's how I recorded some of my first songs. And it, I'll show you a clip of it right now. I used this by piling a bunch of books up to the point of the speaker on my line 6, and I just put it on top of the books, and I did not know what I was doing. I actually don't know how this thing sounds. I haven't heard it in forever, but it's a good nostalgia trip, and we'll feature it in a video at some point. Let's talk about the newer NW800. Because, yeah, it's trash, right? It is absolutely trash, but I like it. I like that it's trash. I use this thing for room mics. Sometimes if I want to get a really gnarly sound out of a production and make it sound all like terrible, but in a good way, I'll put the NW800 as a room mic, and then we'll just compress the shit out of it. So some audio engineers out there will relate to this. Have you ever just taken like a duplicate send of a hi-hat and then like ran it through a distressor until it just sounds so aggressively top heavy? You could just do the same thing with a room mic on an NW800, and that's why I like to use it. If I want things to sound terrible but in like a stylistic way, dude, NW800 all the way. Let's talk about the newest microphone in the group, and the microphone that I think is quickly becoming top 3 of the group. Lewitt 440 Pure. This microphone is everything that I think a contemporary microphone should be. As I've said in my review, I think this microphone is fantastic at controlling the high end in a really beautiful, elegant way. And if you're looking to get a condenser microphone for a new contemporary sound and a rugged microphone that's built amazingly, I think it's really good for content creation too. because it looks nice on camera. It's got a new contemporary sort of style to it. Lewitt's the way to go. I use this thing a lot on acoustic guitar now. It's starting to replace the Rode NT1 for guitar because of the way that it handles high-end. Guitar nerds out there, I have a Taylor, which we all know Taylors are really bright sounding, which is kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because you can use a microphone that is bright and you can make that Taylor sound way too bright. I don't know if this is getting particularly too extreme, but the B string on a Taylor just stands out more than any other string for me. And if it's not handled well in the high end on your microphone, then it's just not going to sound good. And this handles Taylor's high end in a really nice way. Let's talk about the AKG P170. It's actually not mine, technically. I traded my 512 Audio Skylight, particularly just so I could do a review and a piece on small diaphragm condensers. It's a great mic, though. It's a little dark for my tastes. People are starting to realize that I like brighter microphones. The AKG P170 is a great choice for a cheap small diaphragm condenser microphone that can really get the job done. And as I said in my small diaphragm condenser video, can actually be more accurate than a lot of large diaphragm condensers. Last but not least, let's talk about the big boy. Well, the tiny big boy. The TLM 102. Kind of a controversial review for me. Besides some videos where I just didn't do a good review, it is the one that has the most pushback. Oh, look, we have a guest. Hey, honey. Do you like the 102? The pushback came from the fact that the criticisms I had for this microphone were not rooted in the microphone itself, but the fact that it doesn't come with enough peripheral support to really support a home studio environment. And I stand by that. I really think that Neumann needs to include a shock mount if they're going to tailor this as the budget alternative to their microphone collection. And I think they do put a premium on their name. I don't know their margins, so, maybe it does cost that much, and in order to be profitable, they do have to charge that amount, and they really can't include a shock mount. But I mean, the NW800 came with a shock mount, guys. But that being said, the microphone itself is absolutely beautiful sounding to me. I know a lot of people that don't like the Neumann sound. I know a lot of people that do. But the mid-forward presence on this is amazing. It sounds beautiful on voiceover. If I lived in an environment that let me use a condenser more easily, this would be the voiceover microphone. No one does mid-range like Neumann does mid-range. I really do think that. So I use this thing sparsely, but I use it for acoustic guitars, and like I was hinting at before, I pair it with either the SM57 or the SM7B to get a killer. Thank you, Blair. I pair it with either the SM57 or the SM7B to get a killer guitar recording. What I'll do is I'll put it at like 2 or 3 feet back from the guitar cab, and then I'll close mic the SM7B, probably the SM7B, at right on top of the tweeter on my guitar, and I get an amazing guitar tone because the Neumann is really great. Thank you for that. The Neumann is really great at just producing the most realistic tone without any distortion, without any bloating. It sounds like it does in the room. It's really great at that. So that's what I use it for. Don't trust what it says about plosives. It's terrible at plosive rejection. And it's not a great home studio microphone without that support. Sensitivity is pretty intense. So those are the microphones. I figured what we could do now is talk about the microphones that actually get use, because we got a destroyed pile of microphones here. Let's take the ones that don't get use, put them off to the side. Samson M7, if I'm honest, the P170. Another piece of honesty, haven't got enough experience with the V7X, but I don't like the RF rejection. To be honest, the E609 doesn't get used much. SM58 doesn't get used much. And what we're left with is the Rode NT1 for acoustic guitars at this point, the TLM 102 for ambient miking a guitar cab and also on acoustic guitars, the Lewitt on acoustic guitars, NW800 as a room mic, Shure SM57 close cab recording, SM57 close cab recording, and then the RE20 used for voiceover. Let's make a little jam out of these microphones and see how they kind of hold up. We're gonna have to do Andrew Huang style and make some noises with the room because I don't have any drums. And a quick note, I can't sing, but I can do some oohs and ahs. So what I'll probably do is use the 102 for any vocals I do, or maybe the RE20 if sound is just way too big of an issue. Sound rejection, that is. Let's go do it. Okay, guys, I hope that was helpful. I hope that was fun to hear how these things will sound in a production. You can follow me on Instagram at RealAudioHaze. If you'd like to work on a project with me, you can email me at realaudiohaze@gmail.com. Hope this unscripted video was fun. Here's the outro.